Hello, it's Ron Howard here. Very pleased to be commenting on just a few of the movies which can be seen on TCM in November. Now, the first title I've chosen is Elia Kazan's A Face in the Crowd.
This whole country just like my flock of sheep. Rednecks, crackers, hillbillies, housefrows, shut-ins, pea-pickers. Everybody that's got to jump when somebody else blows the whistle.
Its significance has grown tremendously over the decades, both as a distinct piece of cinema and an increasingly relevant social commentary. Most personal to me is Andy Griffith's performance as the central figure, Lonesome Rhodes, an easygoing folk singer who's transformed by a media producer into a populist figure who's changing the face of politics. It's wild, and Andy plays it brilliantly under movie master Elia Kazan's direction. Bud Schulberg adapted his own short story into a great screenplay, and when Kazan couldn't land his On the Waterfront and Streetcar Named Desire buddy Marlon Brando to play the lead, the director-producer turned to rising comedic singer, comedy recording artist, and Broadway sensation Andy Griffith for the part. Kazan saw an intensity underneath Andy's earthy charm, and once shooting began, he delved into it in ways that later Andy confided to me made him uncomfortable. Kazan was quoted as saying he found that he needed to get Andy to take a few drinks before scenes when his character had to be particularly vile or physically threatening because, quote, Andy just wants to be nice and get along with everybody. Well, that's the Andy that I knew. Andy told me that he decided midway through the production that he wanted to stick with comedy and have a few laughs at work. 2 years after Face in the Crowd was released, Andy agreed to do The Andy Griffith Show, and I was cast as his son, Opie. That changed my life forever, so I guess I'll always owe Mr. Kazan a debt of gratitude for being the emotional taskmaster in the name of art that he was. Another great movie, which can be seen this November on TCM, is Champion, starring Kirk Douglas. This 1949 production is a fantastic boxing movie, and so much more. I know I took tremendous inspiration from it while I was preparing to direct Cinderella Man. The film noir tone and story, the great performances, and realistic depiction of the fight game and the boxing matches themselves impressed me on multiple levels. It was a breakout vehicle for Kirk Douglas, who struggled a bit, frankly, to win the role. He was quoted as saying he finally had to strip his shirt off in a final meeting to show off his physique and convince them that he had the bravado and the body to be a believable champion. Now, as I learned with Russell Crowe on Cinderella Man, it's more or less impossible to double actors in boxing action because there's so little clothing and the camera simply needs to be in tight on those punches. Douglas trained and did all his own boxing, despite the fact that apparently he had only recently had some cosmetic surgery done on his nose, and any missed punch landing for real on his face would have been a huge problem. Mark Robson helmed this movie, produced by Stanley Kramer and written by Carl Foreman. All heavyweights in their own right. But it's interesting to learn that the movie was financed independently and filmed in just 24 shooting days, which is similar to the schedule of most low-budget American indie movies today. So Champion was a huge sleeper success. It garnered 5 Oscar nominations, including one for Douglas, Arthur Kennedy for Best Supporting Actor, and Carl Foreman for Adapted Screenplay.
For the first time in my life, people cheering for me.
One of my favorite character-driven comedies ever is Private Benjamin. It's hilarious, and it's the movie that proved Goldie Hawn, who had been so impressive in Cactus Flower, Shampoo, and Foul Play, was, in fact, a bona fide major movie star who could carry a film to box office and critical glory all on her own. As a young director out hustling work, I remember having a general meeting with Goldie shortly after the breakout success of Private Benjamin, And she was characteristically frank and funny about it all. I remember her saying, "Hey, I get it. I'm a little kooky, and Hollywood studio types don't quite know what to make of me. So I figured producing was the best way for me to find roles that I truly loved." She sure nailed it, along with those world-class comedy writers who were also nominated, by the way, and her director. I hope you'll give it a look and enjoy Private Benjamin. I'm thrilled to see that Lady Sings the Blues is available this November on TCM because it gives me a chance to rave about Diana Ross's tremendous performance. This, of course, is the powerful biopic retelling of the life of jazz legend Billie Holiday. Ms. Ross, the pop superstar, was nominated for the Best Actress Oscar, though Liza Minnelli won the prize that year for another musical drama, Cabaret. Now, it can't be said that Liza didn't deserve her award because it was an undeniably extraordinary performance, but Diana's work in Lady Sings the Blues was still a massive triumph due to the unanimous acknowledgement of her profound acting talent. When the movie was released in 1972, it also offered a valuable social relevance by being a highly successful mainstream movie about a Black icon. This was still, unfortunately, something all too rare coming out of Hollywood, and the fact that it garnered 5 Oscar nominations was an important and exciting early step in the right direction. The movie was produced by the outlier genius Motown founder Berry Gordy Jr., and Suzanne DePass became the first African American and person of color to be nominated for Best Original Screenplay. Now, the movie isn't entirely factual, but there is frank acknowledgement of Billie Holiday's struggles with drugs and many other issues. Then there's the music. There were nominations all around in these categories, and of course, it's Diana Ross interpreting these extraordinary songs and creating some movie history as she does so.
More than idle curiosity prompted my question. See, Mr. Spade, I'm trying to recover ornament that, shall we say, has been mislaid.
When I saw that The Maltese Falcon was on the TCM list for November, I had to include it. Most of you have heard of this movie, and a lot of you have probably seen it.
Don't be too sure I'm as crooked as I'm supposed to be.
But here's the thing. I've watched The Maltese Falcon a half dozen times in my life, and I'm telling you, it just keeps getting better. Historians credit the great director John Huston with actually inventing the Hollywood genre film noir with his adaptation of Dashiell Hammett's great Sam Spade detective novel. But get this, it was Huston's first movie as a director. John's dad, Walter, was a famous Hollywood character actor, but his Nepo baby son, John, wasn't interested in acting at that time. He first worked writing for magazines and the theater, and then eventually drifted into his dad's racket and began writing and selling screenplays in Hollywood. Those successes led to this directing opportunity once he had written the adaptation. Now, I don't want to spoil anything, but it's got a world-class set of actors like Humphrey Bogart, Sidney Greenstreet, Peter Lorre, and the MacGuffin, which is a statuette called the Maltese Falcon. Now, this prop, which I read there are only 3 of remaining, has been sold to collectors at auction for over $1 million. This movie has so many twists and turns. It was nominated for Best Picture, Screenplay, and Supporting Actor for Greenstreet. And though it didn't win any of those awards, it was among the first 25 films accepted into the National Film Registry. So take a look. I bet you're hooked by this timeless achievement, just as I am every time I come across it.